right, it's the Hops and Bops podcast back again for episode 8. I am producer Tom.
Oh, I get to go next. I'm Mike.
And I'm Joe.
We kind of switched it up a little bit. That was nice.
Wish I knew.
And
Life is all about spontaneity.
Yeah, it is.
Yep.
So our album for this week is Van Halen's self-titled debut from 1978, Van Halen.
Yes.
And the beer of choice today is Back East Brewing Company's Ice Cream Man, a Citra India Pale Ale. And let's just crack them open.
We're going right into
started.
it. There we go. That's going to be good on the post.
That's right. So what kind of glasses we got today? I have the very tall Hard Rock Cafe glass because it is a Hard Rock album.
Yes, this is true.
Seems appropriate. I went with the City Steam Naughty Nurse glass. They're out of Hartford. Another good beer.
And they follow us on Instagram.
They do. That's right.
Minus the fact that I have a Miller Light glass that I just realized doesn't say Miller on it. It says Light. But it's actually got a microphone, a keyboard, a guitar, a drum set.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, it's an actual like rock band glass. So I went with that for the late great EVH.
Oh, EVH, yes. Cool.
Yeah. So Ice Cream Man. Back East Brewing Company in Bloomfield. It is a shocker, Citra India Pale Ale. 6.4%, so not too bad. Contains no dairy, in case anyone was wondering.
Yeah, I know.
Contains no dairy.
When I first heard
my kid can drink it.
Can he though?
When I first heard of this beer, I thought it was going to be more of a stout kind of thicker.
I got you.
So to find out it was just another kind of Citra IPA. I mean, I'm not happy. It's a great beer. But I was like, oh man, I really wanted to try that. But it's okay. It's right.
So first thing is smelling it.
Oh yeah,
it has a little more of a hoppy smell to it than a lot of the citrus IPAs, in my opinion.
Yep,
I just feel like it's got a little bit more bite to the smell.
Yeah.
Which comes along with those citrus hops that they brew it with. They're very strong floral citrus aroma as well as taste. I do think this tastes a little hoppier than a lot of citrus IPAs. Last episode we talked about good old Tom, and you had talked about how smooth it was, and I think this has a little bit more of a bite to it. I also think it's actually, I know it's much cloudier.
Yeah, it is.
It's a little bit hazier. It's a little bit thicker in the coloring, that golden color.
Definitely not transparent at all.
No. Which is kind of similar again, going back to like the Witch Doctor, and we got the strawberry milkshake, the Bunny Patch, which again a milkshake IPA, so it's the way it's brewed. It's got that little thicker. I can see why it's called Ice Cream Man. It's got a little bit more of that kind of milkshake vibe, a little bit of a thicker IPA.
It even says on the side of the bottle, well, not bottle, it's a can. Excuse me. It says it actually reminded us of an orange creamsicle, hence the name. So that's where they get the name Ice Cream Man. I don't know if I exactly taste what they're going for, but
no, I don't. Yeah. I don't taste.
I don't taste orange.
Yeah, the orange
creamsicle. I just taste.
But I guess that's
citrus.
kind of the bite with the citrus. You kind of assume. It's pretty smooth on the first. I think it's got more of a back taste than some of the other ones we've done. A little bit more of that hops linger after you've already, you've got that back taste of the hops a little bit more. So if you're not a super hoppy person when it comes to beer, I don't know if this would be one of your go-tos.
Right.
I also don't think this is, one that you're crushing all day long.
Yeah.
It is a little bit heavier. But I do like that as a little bit different. It gives you... it has a little bit of an edge on a lot of the citrus IPAs that can kind of blend into each other one after the other. And then somehow, shockingly, it's actually a 0.1% less.
Is
that correct?
Yes.
It's 6.5.
Correct, 6.4, and a lot of them are 6.5 or so.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit. You could have an extra one and survive.
Yes, this
sure
is.
The cops won't mind.
This is a pretty popular IPA right now in the state of Connecticut. So it's cool that we're talking about it on this year good old Hops and Bops podcast. It's good. It has great taste, nice and thick. THICC.
Very thick.
But your standard, New England IPA, 16-ounce cans. It's technically seasonal.
Is it?
Yeah, I was reading that on their website. It's seasonal. It didn't specify, but I'm assuming more of like a spring summer. I don't think it's seasonal in the sense of like you get it for 3 months.
Yeah.
Because I've been drinking this most of the year. But it is from what they say seasonal. So it's rotating as well.
Yeah.
So they probably goes out for a little bit, comes back.
They probably have like other IPAs to like, replace it.
The can is interesting. I'm not really sure what's going on with the picture.
I was going to tell you guys, I need help deciphering.
Yeah.
Is this like Planet Earth with
I guess
a guy, but like...
Is he tattooing it?
Is he an ice cream man? Like a cell? I don't see any...
Is he eating a comb?
With his head? I don't really know what's going on there.
Again, this is probably something we should have researched a little more before.
Yes, I probably should have, and I didn't.
So
He's
at
got a really
East,
long arm, only one.
That's true. Ooh, yeah, that's really
He needs
thin.
braces.
Yeah.
Looks like
I was just gonna say I do like the fact that it's a completely like white and brown picture.
Yeah.
But he's got blue eyes, and the only other blue thing is Ice Cream Man and the little arrow in east.
In the east, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool because it's actually pointing east. I like that.
It's good graphics.
Oh.
Yeah, you see that?
That's good graphic design.
Yep.
Theoretically, if you have the compass, it would
compass,
be east.
And Back East is a pretty popular like brewing company around here, right? They have like a lot of other like larger drinks in the area.
Yeah.
So it's good to talk about this. I like it.
This is a great beer to bring.
Yeah.
Delicious. This will provide a good drink and thirst quencher throughout the episode as we talk about
definitely
our album.
That's right. And it was your album, correct?
Yes, it was my album pick. So without getting into too specifics, but I actually had a different album planned for this episode.
Mm-hmm.
But then the great Eddie Van Halen had passed away. So I was like, I feel like we need to talk about one of Van Halen's albums.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little more timely. So I chose to do a little shuffling, and I chose Van Halen's self-titled debut album, Van Halen, for this episode. And just by shit luck, the song Ice Cream Man is on this album, and we're talking about Ice Cream Man beer. Mike,
it was
luckily,
not by shit luck. It was completely planned.
Planned this for 3 years.
This has been on our radar the entire time. So.
Yeah. Believe what you want, listeners. We'll leave it open up.
Make it till you make it, baby.
Yeah, interpretation. No, but I wanted to talk about them, and it just seemed like a cool little connection, so I chose this album. So this album, it is, I believe, 11 tracks.
Yes.
Released in 1978.
That seems early, doesn't it?
Yes. So one of my overarching notes on this album is it has, I want to make sure I get my notes down because I said exactly how I want to say it.
Yep.
This album's sound was 80s before the 80s were 80s.
Yes. I feel like they kind of defined a lot of what the music was going to be in the era before they actually did it.
Correct. When you listen to this record, you can immediately put it in like 83, 84, 85. Yeah. But to find out, if you don't know a lot about them, to find out that this album came out in 1978 before the whole 80s craze came in was really surprising. And it just goes to show how influential Van Halen was to a lot of the 80s bands to come, such as Poison, Bon Jovi, Motley Crue. When you listen to those bands, you kind of hear elements of this album and early Van Halen in their sound.
You got a bit of that kind of thrashing metal sound that kind of influenced a lot of other bands too. So I can see that.
And again, to say 1978 just seems so surprising.
They're one of those bands, and you put them in like kind of an area of like a Jimi Hendrix. When he came out, he kind of revolutionized at that time what he was doing with the guitar. Mm-hmm. Eddie Van Halen did. I would even be safe to say, like a Black Sabbath, because they were putting out in the late 60s metal music that just nobody else was creating at the time. Mm-hmm. So they were kind of one of those bands that, like you said, they were 80s rock before the 80s hit.
Right. Agreed.
Everybody else was 2 years behind.
Yeah, exactly. I really think the Black Sabbath connection is a good one. Kind of being like pioneers in the sound before it actually was mainstream.
Yeah. No, listen. Album had a great. have listened to almost every song on this album,
Yeah.
but never in the order of the album.
Correct.
Exactly. Yeah.
Personally, you know, we've had this conversation. I appreciate Van Halen. I like Van Halen. I was just never one to run out and be like, oh, let me listen to a Van Halen album.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, it just wasn't my thing. And going to listen to it for the first time, top to bottom, and just that intro of Running with the Devil was just, you can't start much better than that.
No. Oh, yeah, no.
It was fantastic opening.
Yeah, a lot of this album contains so much essential Van Halen music. And it kind of shows in the fact that they sold 10 million albums, and it's Diamond, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. In the fact that in an album, even like in comparison to Thriller, another kind of classic album that we've done, it contains so many like essential tracks from one band. And it's on a debut.
Yeah, debut.
That is insane to me. They only recorded this in 3 weeks, by the way.
3 weeks, and I believe it cost $40,000 to make.
Yes,
yeah,
it
and they recorded most of it live. So like they didn't track it. It was just
and their first single's a cover.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I know.
So basically, everything we've talked about that makes a great album, this one did the absolute fucking opposite.
Yeah.
And still was a great album.
Pulled it off.
It's incredible.
I know.
Sons of bitches.
Oh man, it's just a great listen for me. You know, beginning to end, and
just the opening track alone. I don't mean to cut you off.
No, you're
but
fine. Yeah.
The opening track alone had every quintessential Van Halen like feature. It had the iconic guitar sound.
Yep.
It had the harmonics that he does on the guitar.
Yep.
It had the classic David Lee Roth vocals with that screech.
Yep.
Oh, yeah,
Between him and the only other guy that I can even say can do something similar to that would be like a Steven Tyler.
Yes.
You know, with that screeching that he does.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's got which I think is underrated, people don't recognize, but the Michael Anthony harmonies.
Yes.
He
Thank
is
you.
just fucking amazing at
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah.
So that's actually one of my favorite things about Van Halen is those, I'm going to use my keyword all the time, quintessential backup harmonic vocals.
I do have to say, the band that started it in that hard rock was Def Leppard. They were one of the big bands to start the harmonies, you know, mixed in with the vocals of like a rock type of deal.
Yeah, but didn't this come out first before Def Leppard?
Def Leppard.
They're 80s.
Yeah, but they had to have had an album before.
I'll look it up.
Anyway, we'll figure that out. But either way, you know, Def Leppard was big on it. They were, if not the starters, they were more well known about it. But Michael Anthony just.
Yeah.
Oh.
I know.
Voice.
He's like the X factor of the band.
Yeah.
You know?
He really is.
And I love the backup vocals. I think Eddie Van Halen himself gets in those background vocals too, with Michael.
Yeah, I think so a little bit.
So
yeah, they all sing.
Yeah, so you know the mainstream singles on this album, the "Running with the Devil," "You Really Got Me," "Jamie's Crying," "Ain't Talking About Love," they all feature those group vocals, the harmonizing vocals. But the one that did it for me was a song called "I'm the One."
Yes.
Towards the end, there's this vocal breakdown where you got this like great rock tune, this up tempo thing, and then it breaks and it kind of goes into this like doo-wop. Yes, doo-wop. Yeah, doo-wop group vocals, and they're all going at it, and I'm like, this is what Van Halen is for me, and I love it. I was always a fan of those group vocals where it's not just David Lee Roth going.
No, I had mentioned in that one that it was a very like raw track.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like super produced. It was just a very kind of like almost like live, and it turned into almost like a barber shop.
Yeah.
Which I thought was it kind of threw me off. It was a little odd, but I get it. It's similar. It's Van Halen. You know?
And especially for someone trying to go for the sounds that they were going for, to kind of include that in a track like "I'm the One" that's got these, you know, fast-paced drums and these tight vocal harmonies and the wild guitars. To kind of include that as such a cool kind of change up.
Yeah.
That it actually made it into my 2020 playlist. That's how good it was.
Wait, "I'm the One"?
It did.
No way.
It did, yeah. That's how much I like that track.
I love it. See, that's what this is all about. This is good shit.
Especially on an album that has all those classic tracks.
Right.
That when you get to a track like "I'm the One," that doesn't really have as much recognition as it does. And I thought at the first time it kind of sounded like other later Van Halen tracks. kind of on like 1984. I feel like it has a very similar style to that album. But no, I love that song. It gives me a good endorphin boost whenever I listen to it.
Yeah, and that to me is a sign of a great album when you're listening to the B-sides or the lesser known tracks, when they kind of complement the well-known singles that everyone knows. It goes to show how strong they were at that moment.
One thing about this album that I thought was pretty crazy was that the second track on the album was a guitar solo.
Yes.
Yes.
You had Eruption, which is like the iconic Eddie Van Halen. Again, so many things are wrong with this album that work.
Yeah.
You know, you open with a great song. I mean, Running with the Devil, fantastic. Then you go to 2 and it's Eruption. It's just a guitar solo. And you're like, wait a minute. And then that guitar solo goes into a cover, which is also their first single. So the only thing that makes sense is that in modern day, okay, track 3 was their first ever single. Like that's literally the only thing that makes sense at this point.
Yeah, right.
You know, and it's funny because my brother-in-law is a musician and he's a music audio engineer. And he's in a ton of bands, and we just had this conversation last weekend about how much he hates covers on albums because basically when you put a cover on an album, it's hey, your shit's not good enough, so we're gonna put someone else's song that you play well. Because then people don't have to learn a new song; they just have to see that you did a cover of that song.
Right.
Yeah.
And with this one, it's almost like so far from the truth.
Exactly.
You know, it's not that. Maybe it was because they were such a new sound that they wanted something familiar to also go with the new sound. But they just absolutely like killed the Kinks. And the Kinks.
Yeah.
They sound like the Beatles, that kind of sound. And then you've got Van Halen playing it.
Right. They made it their own. It's like one of their own songs.
Exactly.
Crazy.
That's something Van Halen did a lot in their early albums, leading up to an album, say, like 1984. A lot of the albums had a lot of covers on it. And I remember reading somewhere that for their first album, they were just straight up honest. They didn't have a lot of material. So they're like,
let's cover a song.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, prior to being Van Halen and making records, they were called Mammoth. That was their name, Mammoth. And, a lot of bands, they're writing songs, but they're also getting gigs and they're playing a lot of cover songs. So they were probably like, let's put some of our covers on the albums. Which, it's an interesting thing. But also, the song Ice Cream Man is also a cover, which I did not know.
Ooh.
I didn't know that either.
Wait a minute.
Did you know
Something's
this?
clicking in my head that I read that
Yes.
when I was researching and doing the album.
I only found out it was a cover because I researched this album. Otherwise, I would not have known.
Yeah, me too. I knew that. I researched it.
Well, a lot
John
of those,
Bryn. The guy named
a lot
John
of
Bryn.
those bluesy songs, like a song like St. James Infirmary, an old school bluesy tune. Everyone knows it. Sometimes they don't even know who actually is the originator of it, but it's just that kind of quintessential again. So it's like a third time in this podcast I've said it. Jesus Christ. But again, I actually found that there were quite a few songs that had a very heavy blues influence.
Yes.
On this album.
Yet they turned it into this kind of hard
Bluesy,
rock metal.
Blues metal. Yeah. For sure.
It was just, it would have been great to be alive during that time and experience this like as it came out, not having any prior context in it.
Minus the fact that we'd be older than shit now, but
we
already are, so I'm glad that's not.
But going back to Ice Cream Man, I really enjoyed the intro with just David Lee Roth.
Yes.
He's also playing guitar on that track too, yeah.
Is he playing guitar?
Yeah, he's doing the acoustic.
Okay.
I think that's the only track on the entire album where someone else, or there's even 2 guitars. One of the notes I wrote when doing some research was that he recorded just the one guitar for every song. If you listen to the solos, there's just bass in the background. There's no second guitar. A lot of times they'll record a second guitar part, and that will be they'll dub over a second guitar, even though live they won't, or they'll have a studio or like a touring musician or whatever. But I don't believe there's a second guitar in any recording.
Yeah.
Huh. I also believe they did a lot of this live.
Yes.
Yeah. I mentioned that earlier. It was mainly a live recording album, which makes it that much even more impressive.
Yeah.
The musicianship is crazy.
Yep.
But Tom, David Lee Roth plays the acoustic guitar.
Yes, and that's why I liked it so much. Is that You don't hear any other acoustic guitar on the album at all
Right. No.
because it's the style they go for. So I thought it was a pretty fun genre flip, and the fact that they kind of had this very bluesy sound with like all the innuendo filled lyrics
Yep.
about guaranteed to satisfy, going to do all this stuff on the Ice Cream Man.
That's been my favorite Van Halen song since I've started listening to them.
Ice Cream Man.
There's I've never. I mean, I know that there's like just your crucial Van Halen tunes.
Yeah.
That has been since the day I heard it. That's my favorite Van Halen song. It's never never changed.
Yeah.
That tune.
So for that song in particular, Ice Cream Man, it kind of reminded me of a couple podcasts ago, a couple episodes, we talked about Scratch Track and their song Love Someone.
Yep.
Like that was their take on like 50s rock and roll, blues.
Mm-hmm.
Ice Cream Man is Van Halen's take on that genre. And I loved hearing how they, began the song with that, traditional style of the acoustic guitar, the blues, rhythmic pattern. And then he goes, "All right, boys," and they all come in. Like, it was like, yes.
It's very satisfying.
It's their take on it. And I love that. I don't mind as much as having covers on albums.
No. Listen, there's some bands out there right now that are actually crushing covers. It just sucks to know kind of mentally the thought process behind why there's a cover rather than just like, you guys are so good and you played this song great, so go ahead and continue.
Yeah.
But...
Mike, you had mentioned earlier about Eruption. I almost wished they began the album with Eruption.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know how much foresight the band had about their sound. Like, hey... Let's screw these guys up. Let's begin our album with a guitar solo.
Yeah.
I kind of wish they went from Eruption into
Running with the Devil.
Running with the Devil, and then You Really Got Me.
It's kind of funny though because
Eruption fades out, and then Running with the Devil fades in with that sound. I thought that'd be kind of a cool thing, but it's almost it's hard now. To hear Eruption without You Really Got Me
going right into it
because
that's it.
All rock radio stations play those two songs together.
Yeah.
They don't just play Eruption. They will play Eruption followed by You Really Got Me. So it's hard to think of that otherwise, but
it's like playing We Will Rock You and not going
play
into
We Are the Champions. Yeah.
Are they technically one song?
I think they're two songs.
Are there two songs?
Yeah.
I don't know, but they go one to the other.
And it's also like Led Zeppelin, Live and Love and Made into Heartbreaker. Like they always play those two songs back to back.
Yep.
But can we just talk about the we talked about this a little earlier, but the power of the songs on here. We have Run with the Devil, Eruption, You Really Got Me, Ain't Talking About Love, Jamie's Crying. Those 5 songs right there are still played on classic rock radio if you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But those are like essential, like you said, Tom, Van Halen songs all on their first album.
Exactly, yeah. And especially on a debut, it's so incredible to see that kind of power just at it's starting off,
Yeah.
And but going back more into Eruption, I really enjoy that he kind of introduced the entire world to two-handed tapping, and it sounds like a completely other worldly thing if you've never heard of it before.
Yeah.
It's that's one of my favorites. I really enjoy that one.
For sure.
Then we got the cover of the Kinks. Then we go to Ain't Talking About Love, which is just a great tune. Great riff, great ending. I mean, there's just nothing.
That intro, dun, 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 it's just great shit.
It's a great song.
Yep. And then you got Jamie's Crying, another great song. But I think if you look at the vinyl breakup, I think Jamie's Crying was the first song on the B side.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, that would make sense.
It's oh shit, we ran out of room.
Yeah.
Let's put this one on the other side.
So Jamie's Crying, for me, was your mainstream single.
Yeah.
That was the song they had to make in case people weren't digging them.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, we're still here. This is for you guys.
That's a good point. Yeah.
That was Jamie's Crying for me. Not my favorite, definitely not the worst song, but they definitely made that song for the mainstream, the popular audience.
Right. But I still think they did a great job at maintaining their sound with that song, even though it was more mainstream. And for me, that's a great example of a David Lee Roth era Van Halen song.
Oh yeah.
For that era, before Sammy Hagar took over, the David Lee Roth era, they were just a fun band.
Yeah.
No matter what song I listened to by them, it was just fun. When I listen to them, I'm immediately transported back to, I don't know, early 80s LA, club scene, all these bands playing. And it just sounds like that. It's just a great sound. I think Jamie's Crying is kind of that in a nutshell.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then it goes into Atomic Punk. No?
Me too.
Yeah, not a
No?
fan.
Not a fan?
Yeah, that was.
I kind of liked it. I liked it. Good guitar riff.
I don't know. I thought it was like. I get that it was kind of a punk influence, like they tried to had that feel, but I don't know, just vocally wasn't the best. Lyrically was extremely corny.
Yep.
It didn't fit the album. It was like the one standout song that I couldn't, like, again, we go back to our last podcast, we talked about, having that one song you skip. That would be my song to skip.
Yep.
And I laughed because we were supposed to have a guest on this episode, Trevor, one of our friends. That actually was his favorite, or at least sleeper, because we had talked around a campfire. We were talking about the album.
Yeah.
And that was actually one of his favorite sleeper. I couldn't remember, but it was a top song for him.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I could not. That, to me, they were trying harder than their covers. Like, they were trying to make a song that sounded punk, and it just was.
It's interesting because that was one of my sleepers. I enjoyed it. Yeah.
No, I would agree with Mike. It's so different in mood and kind of the vibe that the album has, and not necessarily in a good way. I feel like there are tracks you can kind of switch it up a little bit stylistically and still get a really solid album out of it. But it was just a bit too much at times. Yeah. And I think vocally it wasn't necessarily his strongest performance for me personally. But
so along the same lines, I feel how you feel about the song On Fire, the last song.
Yes.
That one, like such a great album, and you end on that song. I didn't like the chorus, like, I'm on fire. Like,
yeah, agreed.
I just didn't. I didn't enjoy that. That's like a skippable song for me.
I said it was very 80s. It had a very 80s chorus. It was an okay song. In my opinion, had they ended the album with Ice Cream Man?
Yes.
Beautiful.
I know.
Great ending.
I know.
End it with Ice Cream Man and go out off on a high note.
Yeah.
And they didn't.
That
was one of my.
Yeah.
They opened so fucking great.
Yep.
I thought they could end Ice Cream Man. Boom. You end.
Yep.
And done.
I know.
With that vocal little guarantee.
That
little.
Satisfied.
And then you got
that classic
blues
ending.
And done. Album over. And then they come in with I'm on fire, and I'm just like, are you serious?
Yeah.
Are you trying to be a hair metal all of a sudden?
Right. But again, pioneers of the sound. There was no hair metal.
Yeah, I know. It just reminds me of like the first two albums by Pantera that were like straight hair metal, and then they found their sound.
True.
These guys were just crushing it, and then they were like, "Hey, wait a minute, let's try this," and I was just like, "Oh."
Yeah.
It just didn't.
Ew.
Yeah, it just didn't do it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I also labeled On Fire as like a pretty generic, metal and rock track. I thought it was interesting that you said it was very 80s because it was 78. Right. So the fact that they had that kind of influence on that sound, even on like generic metal and rock of the 80s, I thought that was interesting. But I think it was still a pretty good like headbanger track. Not a big standout though for me.
No, I think if it wasn't the last track, it actually would have, had a little bit higher like regard. But you go from Ice Cream Man to that.
I know. I can totally hear now the album ending with Ice Cream Man and be like, holy shit!
And that's 10. But that's 10 songs. That's like a 35, 40-minute album debut. Like.
Yeah, I know.
And then sleeper.
You're revealing a lot mid-episode.
Let's go. Little Dreamer. That was a great song.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Loved it.
Yeah. So that one was neither a sleeper nor a bottom. It was just, it was a good complimentary track to the album for me.
I would agree.
I've got Stevie tattooed on my
That is true.
little SRV.
Yeah.
I could just hear Clapton, SRV, like that was the sound I got from that song.
Yeah.
It was kind of that blues ballad, Joe Cocker feel with the vocals.
Yep.
It just had all those, like, I don't know. I love that kind of music.
Yeah.
So when I heard that song, and again, because I haven't listened to this album straight through, that was one of my kind of songs I'd never really heard. And when I heard it, I was like, instantly my ears perked. I was like, holy shit, what is this?
Yeah.
And absolutely just the simple drum and bass, had a great riff, great guitar solo, great vocals. Like, absolutely love that song.
Yeah.
Yeah, that song is pretty killer.
Yeah. Key tracks. I'll start.
Yes, you will.
My top track is Ice Cream Man. I'm forgetting all the key singles because they speak for themselves, but the track that does it for me on this album is Ice Cream Man because it shows what they can do with a song that fits in another genre, and it's one of my favorite Van Halen tracks. My favorite Van Halen track is Jump, but it's not on this album. So my favorite track on this album is Ice Cream Man.
Yeah,
period.
I'm gonna, like I said, ever since I was a kid, I've been a big blues fan, and so when I heard this tune and this cover and version of it, the whole deal, it's always been my number one Van Halen song. So that's obviously being on their debut album, just perfect.
I am going to go with Eruption as my favorite track.
Nice.
It is so iconic. So many people call it like one of the best solos of all time. And granted, it's the only thing on that song, so it's gonna be more prevalent. The two-handed tapping sounds so tight, almost sounds like otherworldly to me. And it's just such a really good, powerful, almost intro to the next track. You really got me.
Nice.
My least favorite track, I mentioned it before, is Atomic Punk. A bit of a switch up stylistically, and not necessarily in the good way. It sounds almost like all of the instruments were recorded in separate rooms to me. They don't sound very succinct or like together at all. And and the vocal performance wasn't that great for me. So my least favorite.
My bottom track was On Fire, like I mentioned earlier. It was just kind of a downer, ending your album that way. It kind of sounded like a bonus track. Like, hey, here's one more for you, like that we didn't really produce well, but we'll give it to you anyway. Yeah. But to have it as an official track and the last track, it was kind of a letdown for me. So that's mine.
Yeah, On Fire was not one of my favorites, but I do got to agree with Tom. Atomic Punk was just not. I don't know. It was like they were trying too hard. They were pushing that punk sound. Really killed me. The lyrics were just bad. I don't know. It was just It just didn't. It didn't fit the album, and to be like, boom, kind of almost. I don't want to say dead center, but right there near the middle of it, it was all of a sudden just you hit this song, and I was just kind of what the fuck. And then we moved on. I'm like, oh, this is a great album again. it was like hitting a fucking speed bump on the highway.
Yeah,
I just didn't know what was happening.
It's also the B-side on their very first single they put out.
Yes.
With Running with the Devil.
Running with the Devil.
And Atomic Punk. Yeah, that's a weird combo.
Weird combo. However, now if we go to sleepers, mine was Little Dreamer, and I just it was a song that was not released. I personally had never heard it until I listened to this album top to bottom, and it just hit me with the classic kind of blues, Clapton, SRV, Joe Cocker, like all those kind of big name guys, and I could just hear that influence on this song, and I could just listen to it on repeat. It's just I love that bluesy kind of. They killed it.
Yeah, for sure.
My sleeper of choice was or dark horse, whatever you want to call it, is I'm the One. I really enjoyed that track. Super fast paced and energizing. It kind of revealed a lot of what they were going to have as a sound going forward in the band.
Great.
I feel like a lot of their
well said.
A lot of their 80s material kind of is reminiscent of this, and in a good way. It's not like they all sound exactly like it, but that kind of fast paced and energizing, guitar and drum sections, the tight vocal harmonies, the wild guitar and bass, they all kind of wrap up together to have a very strong and powerful track. And again, made it to my 2020 playlist, all that other good stuff.
Nice.
I like it. Sleeping.
Nice. I love it. I agree with you, Tom. I'm the One is also my dark horse track. I just think it's a great example of who they were as a band in that era. I'm more of a fan of the David Lee Roth days than more of the Sammy Hagar days. I feel like a lot of the songs that came out of the Hagar era were more ballad based and more keyboard piano based.
They had different sound.
Different sound. I lean more towards the guitar driven Eddie Van Halen, group vocal, David Lee Roth driven, charisma, all that. And I think I'm the One is such a great example. And the thing that did it for me was that doo-wop little vocal break. And I'm like, shit, this is why they're who they are,
Exactly.
Mind you, My can and glass were empty.
He wanted to.
You did.
I won.
He wanted to show it off.
Yeah.
I took one sip after I saw
Yeah.
you. I did. I saw you like kind of looking at the two like
Yeah.
motherfuckers I beat you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
We need to, however, we need to wrap this up because Joe needs to go number one here.
Ooh.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm the one.
I'm the one.
So what do we got for a rating on this album?
Ratings.
Go ahead, Joe. This is your album.
Okay, I'll go. I'm giving this a 4.5 out of 5 Bops.
Nice.
It's just classic. I can't believe how strong of a debut album this is for all reasons we discussed. 4.5. They just, as a 4-person band, they just killed it.
No overdubbing, no second
Mhm.
guitars.
No.
I mean, I gave it a 4. It is one of your best classic rock, I guess you can call now.
Mm-hmm.
But your classic rock albums, pioneers of the sound. I mean, open with a great intro. You go right into a guitar solo, which then you go into a cover. They did so many things wrong and so many things right at the same time.
I know, it's such a great way of saying it. Yeah,
Really is.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sure.
I also gave it a 4 out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're some of the most iconic songs of the 80s, even though it was released in the late 70s, were on this.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of what they were going to do in the future kind of is shown on this.
Mm-hmm.
And
Can
so,
we-
yeah, it's a classic. It's
Can we
in
say
the Hall
that
of
this
Fame.
is our highest rated album as a whole?
I was
I
just going
would
to say,
agree, yeah.
collectively,
4.5.
collectively, this is our highest rated album.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree on that too,
Yeah,
really.
because you see the influences that they have,
Mhm.
and
For
obviously, rest in peace, Eddie. Sorry, this didn't come out sooner,
Yeah.
but we got the news like right after the last
It's
recording
okay,
session,
bro.
so
We have a schedule.
That's true, yeah.
You understand.
Yeah. But, I mean, one of the, if you want to say it, gods of
Yeah.
rock and roll and
Ice Cream Man, I give it a 3.5.
Mhm.
A little bit higher because it's got a little bit of a different, it's a little hoppier. For those of you who don't like the hoppier flavor, not for you,
Mhm.
but for me, it just gives it a little bit more of a bite to that kind of hazy New England IPA that people just, that a lot of them are starting to get a little smoother and kind of similar in flavor.
Mhm.
So I like this one a little bit more of a bump for me.
cool.
Yeah, I gave it about a 3 out of 5 for me. It's I'm not the hops kind of guy.
There you go.
I mean, in some drinks, yes, but I think the way they kind of go about
Put
with
the
this
hops
one.
in your wine.
Did not remind me of an orange creamsicle.
No, not that. That was.
I thought the kind of relationships to the name and the drink didn't really connect that well for me. But for what it was pretty solid IPA. You're gonna get what you want out of it, and 3.5. The Citra hops.
Citra hops.
They're in a lot of the drinks around here.
I'm giving Ice Cream Man, the IPA, a 4 out of 5 hops. I enjoyed it. I recently have got into the heavier hoppy
Yeah.
flavored,
hoppy. I like
heavier hoppy flavored
The hippity
beers,
hoppity.
yet still maintaining the New England IPA
Yeah.
taste. So this is good. 4 out of 5 for me. Thank you, Back East, for Ice Cream Man.
Yeah.
Shout
All right,
outs.
let's do it.
Yeah.
Back East Brewing, Bloomfield, Connecticut. You can find them on Instagram, probably Facebook, their website, the whole deal.
Great beers.
Yeah.
Van Halen. If you've never heard of them, it's Van Halen. HALE.
2 words.
Yeah, 2 words.
Space.
Van
No.
Halen.
Their
Yeah.
discography, their history speaks for
What a
themselves.
last name, by the way.
Oh, what a
Is
what
that
a
like their
great-
natural last name?
Yeah,
Van
I believe
Halen?
so.
Yeah, that's
Where the fuck
it.
are they from?
I know. Again, something we should have looked up.
It's okay.
But yeah, rest in peace, Eddie Van Halen. Thank you, Van Halen. Instagram, Facebook.
All right.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
That was good discussions.
Oh, yeah.
Good discussions. Episode 9.
That's right.
Coming up, we're moving along in our podcast career here. So this was my beer. I chose a beer from my favorite brewery, which is like 5 minutes from my house.
Wow.
Brewery is called Tribus,
Yeah.
and I chose adult.
We played there.
We did play there. Yeah. Again, precursor. This podcast is in no way, shape, or form a promotion for this beer. Tribus Brewery, their beer, adult content. I chose.
Yeah, and I tried to change it up a bit. I know Tom really kind of hit us with our first
Yeah.
twist,
Mhm.
but going with a reggae album.
That's right.
Yeah, a little reggae. Revolution, one of the first reggae bands I was kind of introduced to, and one of my favorite albums by then called Free Reign.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Excited.
So more on that next episode. So really, we're trying to treat this kind of like a book club. So like, get the beer, listen to the album before the episode comes out, so that you can participate and understand the context. So get those. But in the meantime, follow us on Instagram and Facebook, Hops and Bops Podcast. We're streaming on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. So be sure to check that out. Also, everyone out there, we have something great planned for you for the holiday season. In December, we are planning a Christmas and holiday special episode. We're not going to be talking about a specific album, but what we need from you. We need you to tell us what your favorite Christmas or holiday songs are. And then we as a podcast team, we're going to be adding in our favorites, but taking yours as well.
Yeah.
And we're going to be making kind of like a playlist. And we're going to try and narrow down like what the quintessential holiday, there it is again, holiday songs are. So that's going to be coming up next month. So we need your input now. Be sure to check out the link in our bio. We're going to have a link in there for a survey where you can submit your songs. Please participate. We want you guys involved in our podcast as much as possible.
Yeah.
So follow us, subscribe, tell us your Christmas songs, spread the word. And that's who we are.
Let's fucking go. Merry fucking Christmas.
Yes, I know.
Merry goddamn
holiday
Christmas.
season. Can't wait. So for my great friends Tom and Mike, I'm Joe. This has been Hops and Bops Podcast.
Peace.